United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being live streamed by Chelmsford Telemedia and posted on the Chelmsford Public School website for interested community members to access and watch. In-person public participation will be taking place tonight in accordance with the Chelmsford School Committee Public Participation Guidelines. Anyone speaking tonight during the public input portion of the meeting has notified the superintendent's office of their desire to speak and has been provided with these guidelines. Upon request, written comments received no later than 12 p.m. on the day of this meeting will also be read and made part of the record of the meeting during the second public comment session. Do we have any speakers?
We didn't receive any, no, and no one registered to speak.
Are there any members of the press present that are planning on recording? No. Welcome to this meeting of the Chelmsford School Committee. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes from our meeting for
August 16th.
August 16th. Does anyone have any corrections?
I make a motion to approve our minutes from our meeting on August 16th.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved 4-0. Do we have student representatives will be here at the next meeting?
The next meeting.
They'll be here at the next meeting. Dr. Hirsch, do we have any good news?
I do have good news.
Oh,
So
good.
in case anybody didn't notice, we are back in session. We opened up school without any major issues. Dr. Lang will be talking a little bit about opening and what happened in the summer. We do have a couple of exciting events that are happening right now. So this week, we're going to be welcoming 11 students and 2 teachers from San Estalo de Costa School from Malaga, Spain. So these are our exchange students that are coming for a few weeks. They'll be staying with Chelmsford host families, attending CHS until September 20th. And they'll be coming, they're actually here, they're in New York right now. They'll be showing up on Thursday night to meet with their host families. And I believe you received an invite from Jessica Nolette for a welcome dinner at 6 o'clock at the establishment to meet these students and their teachers. So we're very excited to have them here. And then our students will be traveling to their school in Spain in 2023. And the other piece of good news is art teacher Amy Brown from Byham Elementary has been named the 2023 Elementary Art Teacher of the Year by the Mass Art Education Association, and will be recognized by that association this November.
Excellent. Anyone else have any good news? I guess we'll begin with new business.
Sure, we actually have a light agenda this evening. Couple of updates for you. The first one was on the McCarthy Middle School tennis court study committee. This is just a little verbal update for you. The school committee had convened a group in July. We actually met 3 different times. There were community representatives on the board, some school administrators, school committee representatives on the board, to talk a little bit about the current tennis courts, the property, the site at McCarthy Middle School, to discuss, what potentially could go on that site in the future. We ended up actually having a good dialogue, I thought, about a potential multi-sport use for that site. We did a little bit of data gathering as committee members on our own. We put out a survey to the community to try to get some input on that, options or different ideas for the site, and they pretty much aligned with what the committee was considering. So the last step is actually to kind of formalize the notes and do a little bit of a write-up from that group, which I'm in the process of doing. You'll either have it as a report at the next meeting in September or the first meeting in October at the latest. And that will just kind of summarize the group's work, talk about what potential aspects to consider for a multi-use site of that in the future. And then the recommendation would be to take that report and forward that to the town manager and select board for consideration, and ultimately to discuss that project with the capital pipeline when we get into capital talks later on this fall and over the next year or two as far as prioritization goes. But I thought the dialogue in the group was good. I thought the The members all participated well. It was a pretty efficient group. Again, we kind of met 3 times. We had our marching orders. I think we did what we set out to do, and we're just in the process of kind of writing up that report. But I know you were a member of the group, so I don't know if you had anything you wanted to
It
add.
went very well as a tennis player, sort of. The committee, we got a survey out where we got input from the town, and it was good input. And I think the multi-use idea, because so many other sports are of interest to other people in the town, and with redoing the high school, that will give us 6 pretty much brand-new tennis courts, basketball courts, and roller hockey rinks. So I think with that and with the rehabbing of McCarthy, I think we're really using our open spaces. And for the most part, McCarthy can't be used during school sessions by town members. So what we're asking to be put in will be able to be used for gym classes and for the students during the day. So I think it's been really informative, and everyone's been very cooperative. It was a pleasant group to work with.
Yeah, I agree. So we'll be writing that up, and then you'll have that before you, again, likely the next meeting, worst case, the first meeting in October.
Are there any questions about? Very good.
What are the multi-uses?
We're looking at basketball courts, tennis courts, pickleball courts, and some additional parking for the
Yeah,
police station.
and tying in, I think, also like a
Hitting
tennis
wall.
hitting wall, like a hitting tennis ball wall on that particular site. And again, some little parking towards the McCarthy side, and almost like a trail or a pathway that would lead to the parking lot at the police station, so there could be a connection between the sites. And then in addition to like that particular site, we also just identified other things that probably aren't going to fit on that property, but potentially could go on other sites in town or at the schools. Like one concept we were thinking about was lacrosse and like a throwing wall to catch the lacrosse balls. And we thought, could you maybe do a duel? Like one side could be tennis balls and one the other, but from a safety perspective, the lacrosse balls are very hard. And we don't want to have someone get hurt while we're using the wall. So, there is still a need for a lacrosse ball wall to practice on, but probably not right at that location. So we're going to think about other places in town where that can go. And then we even had a little bit of dialogue about like, say, outside classrooms or meeting spaces and things like that. And if it doesn't quite fit in that location, we actually have the whole McCarthy property even on the other side of the school and the other schools as well to consider. So we may end up having a recommendation for the McCarthy court area and then other recommendations for the town to consider moving forward. But those, the big ones were basketball, tennis, pickleball, and incorporating them into like sports that could be multi-purpose and used for different activities. As Jeff mentioned, I think one of the things that people don't realize is when we put any kind of like court type structures on school property, they're really not utilized by the community during the school day. So you're limited to, after hours or weekends. So we definitely want something the school kids can use for recess and physical education classes and things like that. But I think longer term also, we kind of got the group thinking about, if we are to add other, whether it be tennis courts or basketball courts, are there other locations in town where maybe those could go so that they could be used during the school day by town residents and they wouldn't be restricted because of the fact that they're on a school property. So we'll also have a couple little suggestions about that going forward.
Is that true of the high school tennis courts too? They're not used during the,
No.
they can't be used during?
They're not used by the public
South
during the
Row or-
day, no. I will say South Row, once in a while, I have seen people, but I don't know how coordinated that is. But the school uses those areas quite a bit for like phys ed classes and also recess and things. But no, I don't see people behind the high school during the school day.
Very good. Any other questions?
Okay. Next item was just a kind of a little brief overview of opening the school. As Linda alluded to during the good news, we really did have a great start to the school year. A week ago Monday, our staff all got together. We were able to kind of bring everyone back for the first day orientation, which we hadn't been able to do the last 2 years with COVID because we weren't all gathering in the same place. But we were able to have all of our faculty and staff back to the Performing Arts Center that Monday morning, and we had a Very brief speaking program on our part, but we had a very dynamic speaker, Dr. Adolph Brown, come and present to the staff. And a lot of his topics that were discussed really aligned with the SEL and the DEI work that we're doing in the district. He was very well received. I know Maria was actually able to listen to him. Just a very charismatic individual, practical in his message. And really, the staff feedback was fantastic. I haven't bumped into someone who didn't say they really enjoyed opening day. And it was nice to just get everyone back together in the same area. So that really went over very well. And then as we got going on Tuesday, our K to 9 students came back to the district. It was great to see the kindergarten orientations and the youngest of kids coming into the district to meet their teachers and fellow classmates. And then the high school did another really good job this year with the freshman mentoring program and having the freshmen just be able to have access to the building on that Tuesday. And then the upperclassmen joined on Wednesday, along with our kindergarten kids for the first day. So Wednesday was really the first day we had everyone back. And really, that first week went very, very well. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we were in session, and then we broke for the 4-day weekend and came back this week again. And by all accounts, this is probably one of the smoothest openings we've had in quite some time. Logistically, we're going to touch on it in a few minutes, transportation-wise, has been going very well in the schools. Thank you to Joanna and Peter, who work really hard on that. We'll have some numbers in a little bit. Food services is working well operationally. I think the schools, a lot more kids are actually riding the buses again, which is, I know it's difficult for the transportation folks, but it's a benefit at the school level because you have less cars trying to come into the parking lots, particularly at the elementary schools, which is somewhat constrained anyway, dropping people off and whatnot. So really, the first 2 weeks of school couldn't have gone better. I just wanted to highlight a couple of projects for you that we did accomplish over the summer, and then a couple still in the final phases. But Center Elementary School, if you happen to go by Center, their playground was completed right toward the tail end of the summer, and they have a scheduled ribbon cutting tomorrow afternoon for that. So anyone is welcome to stop by if they'd like to. It came out really nice. You will see on the property some snow fencing around the playground area. That's because the landscaper is actually putting new topsoil and a sprinkler system, an in-ground sprinkler system to get some grass growing around that. So the kids can access the hot top for recess and phys ed, and they can go out onto the playground area. That's all open at this point. But the green, the grass field and whatnot, which was really kind of just become dirt over the last couple of years, is being retopped and reseeded, and that'll all be taking place this fall. Likely that fencing will stay up through the fall until the grass kind of sets and into the springtime. But in the long run, it's going to be a nice green area for the kids to be able to play on. That project came out very well. We also did finish the new stadium lighting at Chelmsford High School. That came out great. That's going to be, we have the football home opener on Friday night, so
The 9th.
this coming night.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, did I put the 10th?
Friday.
Yeah, Friday
I'm sorry, I
night.
put the 10th. It's Friday the 9th, and it's a 7 o'clock start. I know the boosters are doing a big party beforehand, starting at 5 o'clock. But yes, we're hoping to get a good crowd out there for the home opener. And again, that'll be kind of the inaugural use of the lights. But that project really went off without a hitch as well. I'm very happy with how that came out. And then a couple of our other bigger projects that are just concluding at this point. The center school gymnasium floor, that was a project we had to kind of bump the timeline till the end of the summer. So that floor project is done now. I think it just still needs another day or two to cure. So the kids will be able to be back on that next Monday. We've had to just kind of work around that for the first 2 weeks, but they got a brand-new gym floor over there, which really, again, came out really nice. Westland's Kitchen is progressing well. We're waiting on 2 pieces of equipment that were back-ordered, delayed coming in from the manufacturer. But I would imagine that kitchen should be up and going by mid-October. So that kitchen is primarily used cooking-wise for our adult ed classes. So we had a little bit of play with that. We're still receiving our food for our breakfast and lunch programs from the high school kitchen at the elementary schools, including ComEd. So there's no interruption to food service at that school. And then lastly, work on the Parker exterior lift, which had been on the capital project list for a couple of years, is in progress at this point too. So the old lift has been removed, and we're just waiting for the new lift to have the fabrication be finalized, and we're looking at a mid-October installation date for that as well, before the winter time. So those are three big projects that have been very time-consuming and taking up a lot of our time, but they're either complete or really in the final stages at this point.
If I, one of the nice things about the CHS lighting is we're going to use the present lights for the new tennis courts. So that we'll be able to have nighttime tennis and basketball and hockey. Sorry to interrupt, but just.
No, it's correct. We salvaged the existing lights from the stadium. We're going to put them in storage until we get the tennis court complex redone, which again is going to have the tennis, basketball, and some street hockey, which does not have lights right now. So we'll be able to work with the vendor and add some lighting to those courts, which I think will be great in the end. But it's just good to see some of these projects, which we've had on the capital list for a number of years, really be accomplished. And again, there's been a lot of coordination. When we get all of some of the smaller projects, I know we did stair treads at some of the schools and a bunch of other things. We'll have Brian Curley and Facilities in to talk a little bit about some of their accomplishments and with some pictures of what actually took place, because I think if you can actually see it, you also get a different appreciation for it. But from a capital perspective, I think we had a very successful summer, so that has gone well. A lot of cooperation with the different vendors that we work with, and also DPW, the different tradespeople have been excellent to work with. So we appreciate that. And then looking ahead, we've got a couple of big things coming, obviously. We committed to working with District Management Group again, DM Group, on the implementation phase of our strategic plan. So last school year up through the spring, we worked and actually developed a strategic plan with priority areas for the next 5 years. The next phase of the work is really the implementation phase, where we'll take a look at the different initiatives that take place in the district that address some of the different priority areas. We'll identify gaps where we might need to either add some programming or services, and that'll take place really between now and December. The steering committee is going to remain the same, with the exception of Candace Hall, who was our interim HR director, obviously has retired again. I don't know if I'll ever have a third retirement, but she's retired again. And then Diane Carey, our new HR director, is going to take her place. But Jeff and Maria will continue to serve on that committee, and we have our kickoff meeting next week, which we're excited about. The timing of that particular project is really over the next 3 to 4 months. So between now and really the new year, we're going to have that piece of the work done, which really lines up well for us going into budget season. So when we start our budgeting in the January, February timeframe, if we've identified different areas that we need to focus on, we can really make sure that we're allocating or reallocating our resources to meet those particular priority areas. So that is going to be a significant amount of work coming up, but we're excited about that. One of the priority areas within the plan that we've spoken about is special education services and achievement, and also just best uses of our resources. So I did have, I've talked to a couple of different companies, but one has been DM Group, who has a particular unit that does special education opportunity reviews. So I actually had a call with them just recently to talk about having them also work with us on a special education initiative and an opportunity review. I'm going to invite them to the next, remotely, to the next school committee meeting to kind of share how they would go about that phase of work. And their proposal is actually one of the more interesting ones to me. So I'm excited to hope that that work will be able to commence after our meeting, probably in early October. And again, it will align to the strategic plan. So it's not that we're doing something outside of our work or our goals that we have identified, but it'll be a nice way to really get going on that work, particularly in the area of special education when it comes to staffing and resources and programming, to make sure that they're best aligned to address our plan. And then lastly, we had done this probably 4 years ago, I want to say, because it was pre-COVID. We obviously had shifted as a district from a kind of a traditional hold-in-place or lockdown scenario response in schools to an options-based response protocol, and we adopted Alice as that protocol. And we had redone all of our emergency plans, working with the police department, fire department, and first responders and whatnot. And we had a group come in at that time and do a review of our facilities, our plans, our responses, and whatnot. We made some adjustments based on that. I think it's good, again, now, kind of 4 years later, to have a group come in and work with us on that. And again, I have had a couple of conversations, and I'm looking at proposals from firms now to come in and do another kind of safety audit review with us. And they would come in and actually take a look at our, again, our plans, our response protocols, take a look, and we've talked about this, physically our structures on our buildings, and, are they as safe as they can be? Are there areas where we should be improving on that within the schools? Our internal security systems, our camera systems and things like that. As well as another step that we didn't do with the prior group, I would actually like a group to observe our drills in the schools and actually kind of watch as we work with the police department, fire department to conduct our drills as kind of a third-party observer to see if they can identify different areas that we could be working on. That's something that we didn't do a few years back that I'd like to incorporate. So again, I'm hoping by the end of September to have proposals be reviewed on that and to have a firm to introduce to you to do that safety audit and safety review. And that'll be something obviously that'll take place this fall as the school year is going as well. So as because I know we've talked a lot about, even kind of interim goals for the school committee and the administration and whatnot. I think that the strategic planning phase work is going to be a significant lift. And I think our opportunity review for SPED and even the safety review, really a good, 3 to 6 month projects to be working on that already align to supporting the strategic plan. Those would be good things for us to all be working on. So I'd look forward to the meeting with DM Group at our next meeting to talk a little bit about the special ed opportunities review. And then I may have a security proposal for you. If not, that would likely be the first meeting in October. But I would want you to meet the group that we're going to work with on that as well. But those are some things that we're going to be working on over the course of this fall and early school year.
On the security, safety, the school safety review, and, getting the proposals together, just making sure that it includes also a review of the outside of the buildings themselves. For example, when children are playing on the playground, do we have all the safety measures in place that we should, and so on? If we can just make sure those are part of the proposals for the review.
Yeah, they would be doing like a paper review of all the plans, but then they would also be doing like a physical structure review. So that would be the buildings,
Right.
inside, outside, and whatnot.
Outside too.
And then the third element, which we didn't have the last time, is kind of the observance of our drills and our own kind of preparedness. So that would be incorporated as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I didn't know if you wanted to talk about Governor Baker's proposal on the grant around safety. I know
No,
that,
that's just what made me think about it, is that I know
Right.
that there was legislation that went through about grants for safety studies and that side.
Yeah, there was something that came out right towards like mid-August.
Yeah.
The governor had announced that he was going to be trying to get a supplemental appropriation for some additional safety grants that they would make available to schools. We haven't seen an application on that yet or kind of figured out how that would come forward. We're going to move forward to get the proposals in place and get our contracts in place anyway, because I don't want to wait. I'm sure there are a lot of districts that have to kind of wait for the funding source. We have funding, and we also have, this would even align with some of the different ESSER grants. So I'd really like to get a vendor locked in. If we can then ultimately apply for a grant and get the grant to pay for it, great. I just don't want to be caught like kind of in a waiting game and then have to be backed up at all. I'm hoping to hear something on the grants by October 1st, is when we were on a mass call, they were talking about possibly getting that. I know the legislature still has to appropriate the additional funds. It was just a request the governor was making to the legislature. I think it's likely to happen, but I think we'll set up everything anyway and allocate or identify our own funding sources to get it off the ground. And then, as I indicated, if the grant comes through, great, because then we could reuse our funds for something else. But it is something I want to get working on this fall.
I had heard that possibly the infrastructure funding may also include safety and things for buildings, for school facilities.
Yeah, that was part of the, that governor's school safety. There's a.
Okay, so it's
like a-
part of the federal
There's a
infrastructure.
technology piece, there's a physical infrastructure piece. Again, we're just waiting to kind of see if that funding is going to come.
Great,
But we're not going to wait for the funding. We're going to move forward anyway, and then
yeah, I
just
understood that,
kind of hope that maybe the funding will come.
okay.
Okay. And then lastly, on this little update, because I know we talked a little bit about this, student transportation, again, Peter has worked incredibly hard on bus routes for this year. And this goes back to pre-COVID. So in a typical school year pre-COVID, we were transporting approximately 3,400 students on 29 buses a day. So far this year, we've had just shy of that, 3,300 riders register. I think what is difficult is if you look at the two red lines, we have over 700 kids register between August 1st and the first day of school. So we really do push, and I know this is a, kind of a pressure point for Joanna and Peter. We push to try to get people to register as early as possible because early August, we do commit to the bus routes for the year. So once the bus routes are published, these 700 kids that have registered after the fact, do get placed on bus routes, but they just make our routes less efficient, quite honestly, than they could be if we knew which kids were riding the bus ahead of time. And then we will still be adding on students between now and, whenever they decide to register. We will likely have to make some bus tweaks between now and early to mid-October. We'll obviously notify people on the bus routes that bus times are going to be altered a little bit. Unfortunately, this happens every year, and that's a number that we try to cut down on, but it is something that we deal with every year. We can't force people to register, and unfortunately, that does impact our efficiency in the way that we run the routes.
Do we have a new payment system? How's that working out?
So far, pretty well. It's called My School Bucks, because MCC, which the district used for years, just didn't offer that anymore. So we started that with the bus and then with sports. And so far, so good. And then we'll slowly expand into other kind of simple areas as we have more successes.
So pretty user-friendly and all that?
Yeah, yeah.
The other question I had is how we on extracurricular, like sports buses and all that. I know that was a problem last year. Is it going to be better this year?
Well, I can't speak for Dan Hart, but we do have it in our contract. He can also reach out to other vendors for the charters, but if there's a shortage of drivers, it's definitely going to be impacted. Yep.
Yeah, the sports season's just kind of, as you know, just kind of getting started, so we're going to kind of wait and see what happens. I'm hoping it gets better because last year was a struggle, with kids, and we had a lot of kids having to drive themselves and parents and whatnot. So I'm hoping it's going to be better, yeah. But we can certainly keep an eye on it and report back to you. But again, all in all, even though these little hurdles with the late registrations, the busing still is going very well for the start of the school year, so. Just happy to report on that. That was kind of a little update. It was ironic when I was putting together the slideshow last year and the year before, I probably had about 10 or 12 slides on COVID. And it was vaccination rates and whatnot. So when you kind of peel away all of that, and the fact that we had again, smooth opening, it's a short presentation for you tonight.
Any other comments? No.
Great. And then last, the third item I had on the agenda, we're actually, as I emailed you last night, we're going to pass on for tonight. We were going to do a policy or update a couple of different policies we had. At the last meeting, I know Dennis and Jeff had both mentioned that MASC had sent out some updates with regard to new policies. When I went online to try to work on those and line them up to our policies, I noticed that the first policy was duplicated, to also be the third policy. So when I reached out to MASC, they were unsure at the time which one was correct and which one was incorrect. And it's important enough that we want to kind of step back and make sure we're really updating our policy to be correct. So we should be able to work on that immediate one for last time. But I mentioned to Donnie yesterday as well, though, when I went to the MASC site, in addition to the policy updates that had come out in August, there were also policy updates in February and even back last October, November of last year that I honestly don't know that I ever received. So I mentioned it might be just timely because we updated our policies and adopted them globally just before the pandemic to maybe have the policy subcommittee or a group get together and go back to the point where we actually globally adopted the policies and cross-reference all of the different MASC policy updates that have come out and go through that process to do another global kind of adoption of any of the policies, just to make sure I'm not missing anything. Because in all honesty, I hadn't gotten those updates, so I didn't know to go look for other updates. Some, they're not overly significant. A lot of them were COVID-related, and COVID is over at this point. But just to make sure we don't miss anything, that could also be something that the committee works on this fall, if you want to, as kind of a short-term little goal project as well. And I'm happy to work on that with you. So I just wanted to mention that tonight, and
I think
I'm going to throw it out there.
I think it's a pretty good idea to have a subcommittee on policy that quarterly meets or something like that, to always make sure, if there's nothing new, there's nothing new, but just to keep us all up to date and making sure of that. Because otherwise, there's no particular responsibility other than,
We do have a subcommittee, actually.
it's just, we do?
You and I are on it.
We are?
Yeah, Jeff,
Well, then let's meet. We should just do it. I mean, I don't remember being appointed to that. We are? That's great.
You're on the subcommittee.
Say that again?
You're on
You're
the
on the
subcommittee.
subcommittee.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, let's meet.
But in
I'm
all
so
fairness,
excited.
in all fairness to you too, that, we can take a look at that because you're also gonna be involved in the steering committee for the strategic plan.
Right, that I don't want to do, I really want to stay with that. I think it's I've got the background now on it.
So let's take
I don't
a
mind.
look at that, as we're going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it'd be good for the committee to meet, just kind of do that review. I don't think we have to have MASC come out and do it with us.
No.
We can just look at the policies and see what they've recommended, compare them against
okay.
our own, and then redline them and make some recommendations. And if we have a question, we can always ask either MASC or like Andy's office to review them, and do another update on our policies.
like you
Oh,
said, a lot of the
that's funny.
ones, besides the most recent ones, were about COVID,
COVID,
masking and
Right.
social distancing. So,
And and you guys are great about this, when you do get the MASC newsletters and alerts, just forward them to me, because for whatever reason, superintendents aren't on their list,
Really?
and I don't always get their literature.
Okay.
So just, if someone just remembers to forward it along, because I just didn't remember to even go back and look.
Yeah, I think when we settle on the policy subcommittee, that can be one of the tasks, as you said, making sure that maybe they're meeting quarterly to kind of review
Yeah.
whatever came out, that we've got
Sure.
everything covered in our policy.
And the committee just met, and Dennis got appointed as chair of the committee, the subcommittee,
That's right.
just so you know.
Great. And that's all I have.
That's great.
Does anyone have any liaison reports?
First meeting for PTO for me is tomorrow night. Harrington.
Anyone else?
Chelmsford Friends of Music are meeting tonight, and I believe they have a bottle and can drive this weekend. I think it's this weekend, it's on Saturday. Southrow will be meeting on Monday night.
The Alumni Association is meeting next Wednesday, and if you saw the Little Sun yesterday, there was a report of the 9 new members for the Hall of Fame, and the Hall of Fame dinner is going to be October 15th
Okay.
over at Ulol. The Boosters Club met, and as Jay had mentioned, they will be at the opening night football game Friday, 2 hours early. They'll have a tent set up to meet freshman parents and connect with parents who've been members before and to accept new members. They'll also have some kickoff games for the kids, including field goal kicking contest, putting contest, cornhole challenge, and a dunk tank. So that'll be beforehand, and
volunteering for the dunk tank?
I didn't know there was a dunk tank. No.
I've done it once. That's more than enough to do a dunk tank. So they'll be there to kick off the sports season on Friday. Anyone else? Nope. Does anyone have any new items that they would like to add to an upcoming agenda?
I would like to talk about maybe in our next meeting, the 3 bridge goals that we've discussed: safety, special education, and policy. And then the one thing that I was like us to take a look at is, as I was going through our goals last year and I looked at how we were reporting out, a lot of the stuff we actually didn't do, right? It was things that were presented to us or reports that were generated by the superintendents. As we're taking a look at our goals this time around, things that we actually want to have a hand in doing ourselves and completing, like the policy update, as opposed to other things that we're just overseeing. I mean, it certainly can be a goal. Our goal will be to oversee this, but I think that we have to say that that's what it is, not that we're going to do it. So just to give that some thought about things that we would like to, so another example might be that we're gonna hold 2 open forums for parents to discuss maybe in the spring, the reorganization of the middle schools or any other concerns that maybe people have identified that they would like more information on. But something that we can take a really active role in and then be able to evaluate ourselves in terms of how we did, as opposed to other people who made the presentations.
Good. Anything else?
I think it would be good to just, and I'm sure you're planning to do this in upcoming meetings, but just to have a sense of our total enrollment and where we stand and so on in terms of actual numbers and how our classes are shaping up and all that would be a good thing.
We usually wait until October 1, because October 1st, we submit our data to DESI to just certify like enrollment and whatnot. So usually there's a report that comes out in the fall. I can always give you like just a preliminary report on general numbers if you'd like.
Great.
I can just email you that even, just so you have it. And then when DESI approves our October 1 numbers, I'll put that on the agenda.
Yeah, and the other thing was positions. How are we on filling positions? Because of course, that's something we hear about all the time now, that there aren't enough bodies to apply for positions and fill them and so on.
Yep.
How we're doing.
We're doing, I mean, just anecdotally, we're doing very well with our professional positions. Obviously, all of our administrators are in place. We really didn't have any, we had one retiree last year that we ended up replacing, but we're solid on that front. As far as our teaching positions are concerned, we have just one position that was filled and vacated that we're in the process of refilling at this point. So we're down to just that one in the district. We do have a number, but this happens every year, of like leaves, people taking maternity leaves and things like that later on this fall, that we're going to be looking for some long-term subs to fill, but that happens any year. We're still hiring, actively hiring support staff, so like our secretarial staff is all full, but we still have probably, I'd say about a dozen support staff, paraprofessionals at different schools that we're looking to hire. And, you know, we have hired a few people who ended up not liking the job and not staying with us. And it has been difficult, you know, not only us, but other districts in attracting paras. But we're continuing to hire at this point, and I'd say we need about a dozen more. But that's the group that we're still hiring.
I think I also recently saw something posted for our nutritional staff, that they're also looking for help as well.
Yeah, they actually did a lot of hiring this summer. I know they are looking to even like expand some of the different food options or whatnot. But I did see a flyer about that as well.
Any uptick in getting substitutes? We increase the rate of pay or?
Number one is no. We're, as far as like our pool is concerned, the last time we looked, I think we were at like 60 or 65 day-to-day subs, which is pretty similar to what we had previously. We won't know demand-wise because usually attendance is very good at the start of the school year. So as we start getting into a little bit of like the cold and flu season is when we'll kind of figure out if those staff are going to stay with us or not. But it's similar to what we've had in the past. The one, I mean, the elephant in the room, the one that's killing us right now is Lowell. So Lowell kept their sub rates arbitrarily high for another year. So a lot of people who used, very high, a lot of people who, and this is all of the communities surrounding Lowell are feeling this pinch right now because, you know, it's my understanding they actually have more than they can use at this point, but their rates are so much higher that it's impacting everyone else negatively. So I'm hoping that if they're not able to utilize all their subs, we may end up getting some coming our way. But that's how they decided to use some of their ESSER funding, is increasing the rates.
Anything else? Did anyone receive any emails or anything? Meeting? Well, I guess I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4-0. Thank you.